Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Working Hours, a show about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours wants to record 1,000 loiners over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, how old are we talking here?
As young as you want to go. I mean, it depends. You know, did you always have something in mind, or did something come to you later?
When I was a real child, I wanted to be like half leopard, half human.
Nice.
Leopard man, I was called. I think when I was younger, though, I definitely wanted to have an impact on the world.
Mm.
I don't know if that was childhood dreams or just something, but I knew I wanted to do something more than what everyone else is doing, more than just going to work and being a cog. I knew I wanted to have a positive impact in the world.
Mm.
Now, admittedly, when I became a teenager and girls started talking to me and I figured out what, alcohol was and got to university, that kind of got lost a little bit in a way. And then I studied materials engineering at Loughborough University. And I really, really loved that. But one of my favorite modules was in corrosion engineering.
Mm.
And you know where they need corrosion engineers? Oil and gas.
Right, yeah.
Oil and gas. I really wanted to be a corrosion engineer on like offshore oil and gas because it still had that element of it's different.
Yeah.
Like, you get paid danger money and stuff like that.
Yeah. And you're offshore, so isn't it tax free as well?
You're offshore.
Yeah.
You incorporate like scuba diving into your job, which I can't do, by the way. I thought it'd be cool to learn. And that was the future that I was actively working towards. Had final stage interviews with BP and Total, or Total, let's say. And then the oil and gas crisis happened, and then that never got any further. The news was never on in our university house. Like, it was always reruns of The Office or Peep Show. And this one morning I came down the stairs and the news happened to be on. And it was BP announcing that they were making 14,000 people redundant.
Yeah.
And I just went, uh-oh. And later that day, they called me up and said my interview was cancelled. 2 days later, Total called, my interview was cancelled. We already had flights booked to Aberdeen and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I did want to work in oil and gas as a corrosion engineer.
Okay, so I'll move straight on to the next question, which is, what do you do now?
I run a sustainability consultancy trying to fight the climate crisis.
You're listening to Series 3, Episode 8, and to my guest, Toby Green. This is another Zoom interview. Apologies for the sound. Recorded on the 28th of April, 2022. Evening, colleagues. Toby Green recently finished his PhD at the University of Leeds with a research focus on bioenergy. It was during the first year of his PhD that Toby was enlightened to the immense challenge of the climate crisis and decided to make his life's work tackling this challenge. During his PhD, Toby trained and certified in carbon calculation, carbon reporting, carbon reductions, and carbon offsetting. In 2018, he co-founded what is now MyCarbon with his best friend. MyCarbon is an environmental consultancy company specialising in net zero strategy and implementation. They produce greenhouse gas inventories, carbon footprints, emission reduction plans in line with science-based targets and carbon offsetting strategies for businesses and organisations who wish to reduce their impact on the environment. To find out more about MyCarbon, then go to mycarbon.co.uk. You can also follow Toby on LinkedIn, Toby Green, MyCarbon. If you'd like to support Working Hours and help this show keep getting made, then please visit my Captivate webpage. That's the-working-hours-podcast, so no ST on the end, .captivate.fm. Scroll right down, then click on the support this show button at the bottom of that page. that will take you through to my Patreon. Please sign up there. If you are Leeds, it's £1 a month, and there will be more material and information about this project going up there soon and going up regularly. If you are not Leeds, then please join me at the £5 tier. I have been panic recording interviews recently. I desperately need to get paid now. So what I did was I booked in a load of recording, loads more work that I don't get paid for, so that I can't get any paid work, so I can't get paid. Why have I done this? Because I want to at least make 50 of these. If it's all going to fall apart now, then I need to at least get 50 of these done, So if you are Leeds and you're listening to this, then please do help the show. The podcast is still at risk. So any social media shares or mentions, any donation of monies, etc., are desperately needed and gratefully received. Again, please visit my Captivate webpage, the-working-hours-podcast.captivate.fm. Scroll right down to the bottom and click on the support this show button, go through to my Patreon, and please sign up there for £1 a month or £5 a month. Please, Leeds, come on this podcast, no matter what you do for work. Tell people who you think are interesting to come on the podcast and tell us about their work. Like, share, follow, and subscribe to this podcast. I'm doing all I can to bring this to you. So if you do like anything about it, please follow and promote the show on social, wherever you can. Please give money to the show and give me any feedback, questions, or comments that you have. Email workinghourspod@western-studios.com or use one of my social channels, links for those at the end of the show. Now, please enjoy this totally free and totally ad-free, as far as I know, episode of Working Hours with Toby Green from MyCarbon. When was your sort of Damascene moment then? What happened?
So the first moment, I think there are definitely two moments here. The first moment was, so I got rejected. So I didn't get rejected. The job offers got pulled in my final year of uni. So I thought, uni's pretty great. It's going well. Why not do a master's? So I switched from materials engineering to mechanical engineering, broaden my skill set, and then go through the process again, and hopefully drop my no problem when everything sorts picking back up. And it was during this master's year, I got introduced to a startup company working in biofuels. In a really, really early stage, idea on napkin type of stage. And this guy, during that year, that final year of undergraduate, at least, me and my housemates, we did a project for BP, just like a student competition. It's how to reduce fresh water consumption within the oil and gas industry. And within that, we figured out what biofuels were. We thought, if you could grow saltwater algae and turn that into a biofuel, you've sort of solved the problem. We did pretty well with that, and we learned a lot. And then, so coming forward to the master's year, I got introduced to the startup. And when I met the guy running it, I had a lot to say about it. He was like, "Oh, wow, come join the team." And it was this really tight knit group. It was so innovative. It was so forward thinking. You were really trying to work on something that was going to have this positive, and that just lit a spark in me. And I was like, how could have I just been blinded for the last 5, 6, 7 years? I forgot about this, fire and passion within me. And I was like, this is it. This is the future. And I was really gunning for some sort of job with him, but he never got funding, because you can't get funding with an idea on a napkin. But I loved it. And I thought, you know what, if I do a PhD in this subject, in 5 years time, I'm going to be an expert in it, and I'm going to be really valuable to someone. And so then I went from Loughborough and I found a PhD in Leeds in bioenergy. Well, that's ideal. Never wanted to come to Leeds, never wanted to do a PhD. Didn't even know what bioenergy was, but here we are. So, took myself up north, best decision I've ever made. And it was the PhD course. It had a 1-year master's attached to the front of it. So I didn't really want to do this master's yet.
I've just done a master's.
I was like, okay, it'll be good. And it really was a great year to learn really like the wider context of everything, like not just bioenergy, but the climate crisis as a whole.
Mm.
And it was that year, about halfway into it, where I had my own, are we allowed to sweat?
Yeah.
My own fuck moment. This moment of, I like to call it, of extreme clarity, where I really realized how in trouble we are
Mm.
in the climate crisis.
Mm.
And it just overwhelmed me. And I was like, right, I know I've got to do something about this.
Mm.
I know I have to do something about this. And then I struggled with, how do I have my greatest impact?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, well, do I go into policy? Do I go into politics?
Mm.
That's just not me.
Yeah.
Not a chance. That's not me. Do I stay in academia? And again, not for me. It's too blue sky thinking, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, not enough genuine action, comes through it.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And also, it's not really the place for it either, is it? I mean, it's a place to study and to learn, and then you're supposed to go on and apply, surely.
Yeah, that's my thinking, at least. And there it was. So I was left with, okay, it's private sector, and I kind of knew what I wanted to see happen in the world,
Mm-hmm.
which was a process of calculating carbon emissions, teaching people how to reduce them, and then offsetting your emissions to have this immediate impact on the world.
Mm.
And 2016, I couldn't see anything out there like it.
Mm.
Maybe it wasn't looking in the right place or whatever, but there wasn't any of this. So that's when I knew that, and that's when in my head, MyCarbon was born. Talked to my best friend, Michael, who's my business partner now, sort of went through the idea with him. And I was like, dude, I'm really thinking about starting this business. And, just to sound it off of him. And then the next week, he just flooded me with so much information. I was like, right, if you want to do this together.
Yeah.
That sounds much better than doing it alone.
So like all the regs and the like tax forms and yeah. The first bit is just registering the company is the really easy bit. It's super simple. So well, how's it going then? I mean, it seems to be, you seem to be going pretty well. What's happening?
Yeah, this last year has been more than I could have ever imagined. So just for clarification, I had the idea in 2016. I was doing a PhD, and Michael was on a aerospace graduate scheme at the time. So it was evenings and weekends, and it was just this more of a side project that we were doing as friends that was always keeping us together, something to talk about, something to do. But we were building up, and then suddenly in April 2018, we had someone come to us and ask us for actually a piece of work that they wanted to pay for, and we're like, oh, okay. So that's when we made the leap to establish formally.
Yeah.
And so 2018 to 2019 to 2020 to 2021, it was all quite ad hoc bits of work, supporting some private clients. It couldn't have been that much just because of the commitments me and Michael had.
Yeah.
But it was enough to, start MyCarbon how we really wanted to start it, build our website,
do
a bit of this, do a bit of that.
Yeah.
And then there was enough money, fortunately, in our bank account that when it came to the deadline of my PhD, I was able to finish it. And then on Monday, start full time with MyCarbon with a salary already there.
Yeah.
And that,
nice.
Then that was just for me. And I had that conversation with Michael of, right, now I'm going to give it a real go.
Yeah.
The risk is that the money that's left in the bank just gets spent on my salary. It doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that? Because obviously half was his, right? To which he said, yeah, of course, go for it and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And after just doing a PhD and the master's for 4 years, the last thing in the world I wanted to do was another project on my own.
Yeah. And start work on Monday morning when you've just kind of finished it. So it's like, because that's a big thing. It's just like, and there's no fanfare. I mean, you've done enough like qualifications that, there's no big reward at the end, but
Yeah. And so my goal to him said, right, I'm going to give myself 3 months to prove that this is a sustainable business in the sense that it can sustain us too.
Mm.
Right. So I want you to quit your job and come work with me.
Yeah.
That was my dream.
Yeah.
It was a dream to start my own business. Like I never thought that was actually going to come through. So that was goal one. Goal two was getting Michael. And yeah, fortunately enough, three months later, what happened in that 3 months was enough to give him enough confidence to say, see you later, a well-paid job.
Yeah.
I'm going to go off and work on my own, which I think is such a big risk.
Yeah.
Compared to what I did, that was the real risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I, really, really appreciate him for that.
Yeah. But then, he played that quite well as well, because he was, he was in that well-paid job up until, and you'd started, and he's like, okay, well, if it all goes wrong, if it had gone wrong, then he's only lost that money that would have been there. But if there's enough for you to keep going, and it's very sensibly structured.
Yeah. And so he then came on in July 2021. And then from there, we absolutely blown ourselves out of water, in my opinion. Our first sort of big activity and big kind of risk came at the decision to go up to COP26. Up in where I was going. At the time, we were living down in Eastbourne, so right on the south coast. And so the thought to go all up to Glasgow for, the best part of 2 weeks, where we spend money on accommodation, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Where we were really strapped for cash.
Yeah.
We were like, we got a project and we're like, yeah, okay, we've got the money. Let's go, because we need to be seen to be there.
Yeah.
And that was a fantastic decision.
Yeah.
Met some great people there who've really supported us since. But that also came at a time where we had our biggest ever workload from projects.
Yep.
We had a really cool project that literally, it was from Brewdog, and it came in a few days before COP, and the delivery was pretty much just after COP. So we did not sleep at COP for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Trying to manage workload that we had, new workload from Brewdog, going to COP, attending it, doing the networking properly. And then as well, trying to do the actions that came from that. But that 2-week stint of just laser focus, carried us really happily into Christmas, into the new year. And then since then, it's been absolutely fantastic. And now we've got 3 employees on the way as well. We just sent out their contracts on the weekend, so that was
nice,
fantastic. So, back last year, when we set our aims for year 1, where do we want to be in 3 years' time? Where do we want to be in 10 years' time? It was in 3 years' time, we said we want to have 3 employees.
Yeah.
At the end of the 12 months, no mention of employees. That was never on our agenda, but now needs must.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And again, like within the space of about 8 weeks, it went from, okay, right, we've got confidence that we need to take 1 employee. And it was, should we take 2? Should we go for 2? And then when we met the candidates, we had a really tough time picking between 3.
Yeah.
And we've got a board advisor. He's like got a wealth of experience, absolutely fantastic. Here's Mummery, shout out to you. And he kind of sat there and he kind of said, guys, look at what you're forecasting, or look at your current workload. Just take the 3.
Yeah.
Fuck it, take 4. No, I'm taking 4. 3. We'll do 3. We'll cross 4 when the time comes. So yeah, absolutely mad, but overjoyed, but stressed out.
I mean, is it easing off at all, or is it still at that? Is it still kind of pedal to the floor?
It's pedal to the floor, especially now where it is the workload is high and we haven't got people in.
Yeah,
and it requires a lot of work employing someone. Did you know that?
Yeah.
I didn't. I thought you would come work for us. Awesome. Done. No, there's so much to do, which then adds on to what you've got to do. And of course, when they get here, we especially didn't ask for any previous experience in the sector. I think there's a huge talent gap within the sustainability sector at the moment. And we figured we can either overpay someone with some experience here, or we can get 3 fantastic people who, they might not know how to do carbon accounting, but if we learn how to do it, they sure can.
Yeah.
And then we'll train them up, and then we've got the right people with the right skills.
Yeah.
So that was our approach. So obviously it's still going to take some time to get them up to speed. So yeah.
It's a cracking adventure, really, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It certainly is. Certainly. And that's what I wanted, right? Yeah. That's what I asked for. I didn't want normal. I didn't want just clocking in at 9 and going home at 5. I wanted different. I wanted this experience.
Yeah.
But I've got it.
So I've got a few questions coming out of that. I don't know if I remember them all, but firstly, sort of, having your business partner coming in. I mean, the change from, you going straight off your PhD into doing that first bit of work for yourself, and then having someone come in. So you've had the difference there. Do you think all the stuff that you managed to do when there was 2 of you, do you think you would have been able to kind of do any of that on your own?
Not a chance.
Yeah.
Not a chance. Whoever starts a business on their own, well, hats off to you. Like if you're doing it all on your own, bloody hell, that is way beyond. Because where do you actually have the time to do the work?
Yeah.
That's my thing. There is so much other internal activities that you've got to do that I almost don't think about. And if you really are trying to grow a company, and you're doing your CRM properly, you're doing your finances properly, you're keeping your profit and loss, blah, blah, blah. So I don't even know most of it is. Like, how do you fit all of that in if that is you on your own?
Yeah.
You've either got to have that financial backing so you can immediately employ people to do it for you.
Yeah.
Or you need your best mate and your business partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's it. We're completely bootstrapped. So didn't start with anything. No financial investment. Still not. And so you've got to have money or people. I think. The other thing.
But like you say, going to COP as well. I mean, you already had some good connections. You had that previous work experience. So you knew some people in the sector and that kind of area. But yeah, COP26 must have been just huge for you because, you're seeing there. And I mean, clients must have understood. I mean, like you say, you had to be there because it's basically, that's what you're about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, one thing that, again, is a goal of mine is to be seen as like a global figure within this space. And it's attending events like those that put you on that path.
Yeah.
If you just stay back and shy away from it, you're never going to achieve that goal of being seen as a global leader in sustainability. So, it was so important for us to go, but at the same time, it was such a risk, financially.
Yeah.
But luckily we got it done, and we got some big benefits for it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's all good stuff.
Yeah.
Right. What else did I want to ask about? Well, let's go through. So, I mean, what does it involve? I mean, take us through a job. Are you just going around and sort of look in a room and go, "Oh, this is worth 5 carbon, add that up." And how does it work?
Not quite. Not quite. I wish it was that easy. But if it was that easy, everyone would do it, right? So our sort of key and core offering is taking people from the very start of their sustainability journey to becoming sort of like industry leaders in sustainability, and that is all the journey of net zero. We need to be at net zero emissions by 2050 at the very latest. So the process of that, it all starts with the calculation. So you've got to understand the problem before you can begin to solve it. So what are your corporate emissions? Now, corporate emissions, they're split into 3 categories. You've got your scope 1, which are your direct emissions. This is anything you combust directly on site.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a coal-based power plant, it's the emissions associated with the coal you're shoveling into your furnace. That's it. But most businesses we deal with aren't coal-based power plants. So it's natural gas going into boilers to heat your offices. It's fuel that goes into company-owned vehicles. Or it could be, if you're like a brewery or manufacturer, it's any process emissions that come off your processes. So fermentation produces CO2. So that counts. Scope 2 is the easiest scope because that's your indirect energy emissions. And that is simply emissions associated to your purchased electricity and your purchased heat and steam. And your scope 2 emissions are your share of someone else's scope 1 emissions. So it's your share of the power plant down the road's emissions to create your electricity.
Yeah.
Then you've got scope 3, the wonderful world of scope 3. Everyone hates it. I love it. I think it's the fun one, where there are 15 subcategories within your scope 3, and it's called your indirect other emissions, whereby it is everything else across your entire value chain. So it starts with employee commuting, business travel, it's all your purchased goods and services. It's, that includes your water usage, your water treatment, any IT. You then have your investments, your franchises. Yeah, there's loads. And it's so what you got to do, we talk to the client, we explain the different categories, and we've got a sort of data capture sheet that we have to give to them. And that's the only way we can get the information from them. So they have to go through, provide us with all the information. We get that information, and then it's using either sort of activity data. So that's the ideal one. If there are emissions being let off directly on site, can we actually measure them? Very infrequently we get that. Next is do it via like chemical equations. So like fermentation, you can calculate that quite easily. It's a nice simple chemical equation for that. But again, very rare that we'd actually use that. So then the next step down is using sort of data that's available on the internet. And we try our best to use open source data, just so when we do report them, we can be nice and transparent.
Yes.
So we take emission factors provided by the UK government, for example, and it could be, say, right, you've used so many tons of glass in your manufacturing this year. We times it by the emission factor, and then that gives you the carbon footprint of your glass usage. And then you sum it all up, and then you produce a report in accordance with ISO 14064 Part 1 and the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. So then you've got your carbon footprint calculation. There we can actually see, all right, where are the hotspots, where are the inefficiencies, where are your emissions too high, and what can we do about them? So then it's all about the reduction, because the reduction is the most important activity, because we as a global society need to reach peak emissions by 2025 at the very latest. And that comes from the IPCC's latest report. 2025 at the very latest. And so when it comes to reductions, the global leading standard on net zero is called the Science-Based Target Initiative. It's set up by the UN Global Compact, Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF, and several other organizations I cannot remember off the top of my head. But they essentially set out targets in line with limiting global warming to 1.5. And they have essentially guidance for different sectors on how they should approach reducing their emissions.
Yeah.
And so it's right, take that guidance, take the company's, the carbon footprint and the strategy, and then it's about giving them the target that they need to hit global warming to 1.5. But then it's about giving them practical actions and economically viable actions that will help them achieve that. So it's producing that reduction strategy. That's really important. And it's monitoring that reduction strategy, making sure they're doing that. And it can be very, very simple things like switch to a green energy supply, because that can get rid of your whole scope 2 emissions.
Yeah.
But the scope 3 ones, where it is so crazy and it can get so complicated, where the data is quite questionable in most areas, they're the ones that are really hard to put in a meaningful reduction plan in, unless your suppliers have got their carbon footprint calculated.
Yeah.
You know, say we are using glass, for example. Say we're a brewery using glass. Glass is one of the biggest sources of emissions associated to a brewery. Cans are much more effective. So much lighter, less material used, various reasons. And so your strategy number 1 is, okay, use cans, right? But then if they say, no, we need to keep some in bottles, well, how would you choose which bottle supplier to use in order to reduce your emissions if neither of them have got carbon footprints worked out?
Yeah.
So that then becomes the challenge. And, you know, if you apply that to everything from paper usage, your transport, your distribution network, that is the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so once we've built that reduction strategy and we've fixed that challenge for them, carbon offsetting is that immediate thing they can do to mitigate that impact on the planet. And so you offset along your journey to net zero. And then once you've got to the point where, okay, you need to hit net zero, then it's about ensuring your offsets are from removable based carbon credits. So from projects where carbon dioxide is actually being removed from the atmosphere, and that is the net part of net zero. So then your emissions are balanced out effectively.
Okay, so let's. No, but it's pretty comprehensive sort of overview of the whole thing. I mean, like you say, you know, your scope 3 are the kind of fun ones, because that's where you're looking for a lot of creativity and a lot of like, well, it's kind of, you're showing a business, here are the kind of easy wins, and you're making it easier for them by, you know, having that flexibility of like, okay, well, you know, this is to do with your brand, and maybe this needs more thinking about to make it more carbon beneficial, for want of a better term. Where am I going with this? I've completely forgotten. Yeah, you're giving a whole scope of everything. You've got the areas to kind of investigate things. That was it. I wanted to talk to you about the offsetting.
Yep.
So the offsetting, I mean, there's going to be a lot of skepticism.
There is.
So have you, take us through your position on offsetting, why you think that? Have you been to some of these sites, and like what gives you confidence in the regulators and so on? Like what?
Yeah, sure. So I was really fortunate enough to be asked to be on a COP26 briefing paper. This was towards the end of my PhD. My PhD had nothing to do with carbon offsetting, so it was really quite cool to be asked in this. It was a paper organized by the EAUC. It was like the sustainability body for further and higher education in the UK.
Yep. And
on the paper, you had, some of the best climate academics from around the country. You had 2 members of the IPCC. You've got Professor Piers Forster from the University of Leeds, who's a Nobel Prize winner.
Nice.
And then me. I was like, wow. And it was a fantastic opportunity to, what I brought was trying to bridge the gap between what is practical and realistic in real life to what academics' ideal standards are. And so what we did is essentially came up with a set of principles on what is best practice carbon offsetting. And number 1 principle is reduction is the priority.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never just offset.
Yep.
Because if you, in my opinion, if you just offset your emissions and no concern for reduction, then that's greenwashing, right? And especially if it's, the term carbon neutral can be achieved very easily. Carbon neutrality is you calculate your scope 1 and your scope 2 emissions and you offset those.
Mm.
Very easy to do and can be done very cheaply.
Mm.
And so that's why that can be seen as such greenwashing, unless there is this reduction strategy to come hand in hand with it.
Mm.
So that's why reduction has always got to be the priority. So we wrote this paper, put it in for COP26, and we stand by the principles that we as a group of academics came about. But offsetting is a tool where it genuinely does help someone who has emissions that they are emitting, at least fund climate activities in a different location. These are climate activities that would not have gone ahead if it wasn't for the sale of carbon credits.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, there are some very poor projects out there, which is why a lot of due diligence is needed in when it becomes the purchase of your carbon credits.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes the actual carbon number can be questionable. So one carbon credit should always equal 1 ton of carbon dioxide either being removed from the atmosphere or avoided from entering the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Now, because a lot of these carbon credits originate from developing countries, because that's where that sort of additionality factor is needed, where the funds are needed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of social benefits attached to them. Sometimes, in my opinion, the social benefits are so strong that they outweigh the carbon accounting side of it.
Right. Yeah.
So to me, there are questions asked on, well, is that one credit actually worth 1 ton when your math doesn't take into account several factors?
Yeah.
And even though, you're still funding a really nice activity, are you funding that 1 ton being removed or avoided?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where there's questions. And one of the biggest questions on sort of people who don't like carbon credits and carbon offsetting are generally around Red Plus projects, Vera Red Plus projects. And this is where I'm going to have to be very diplomatic around here and sort of say, like, one of the issues with this type of credit, there's a lot of work going into solving these issues, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But traditionally, one of the issues is these credits are all based around forestry protection on a project basis. And so what you have is someone in a country in South America, for example, who owns a bit of land, owns some rainforest, has said, look, he's drawn a circle around this area of rainforest and said, look, if I don't chop these trees down, provide me with some carbon credits that I can sell onto the marketplace to pay me in order to not chop these trees down, which makes sense because we should fund rainforest protection. That person could quite easily chop those trees down and put a cow herd there or sell it for timber, whatever. Okay. But what we don't know is A, was he actually going to chop the trees down in the first place?
Yeah.
One of the additionality sort of factors. And 2 is what happens to all the forest around this tiny area of forest that he says he's protecting?
Yeah.
Just because he's not chopped this area down, has he just chopped this area down
around it? Yeah.
But then this sort of is bringing into this whole new era of Red Plus governed by the UN. So it's UNFCCC Red Plus, and it's all based on sovereign carbon. And this is what I think is really cool. I think it's got to be the future in my opinion. And hopefully COP27 will really see it come to fruition, where it's based on countries as a whole and their NDCs, whereby you look at forestation on a country on a national level, and you take the net So it's no longer on this project by project basis. It's the whole country. So countries like Papua New Guinea, who have for the last several years heavily reduced their rainforest deforestation and been really focused on growing new trees, they actually are going to get some financial benefit for doing this. And the money's going to hit ground level as opposed to just on a project level, if that makes sense. And so then it's all on a national level and the trade should happen nationally. So if a company in the UK bought a sovereign carbon credit from Papua New Guinea, that then comes over to the UK and it can count towards the UK's sort of global emissions, if that makes sense. Whereas if it's on a project basis, it can't be traced and it can't be counted. So so there's voluntary carbon offsetting is heavily unregulated at the moment. There are issues with it, but name one better way to fund climate action.
I mean, like you said, the reduction thing being the most important thing. But it does get into a realm of, with that, and even with you get offsets and carbon credits and the sort of monetization of it, or the way that we've thought about monetizing it. They're all reliant on certificates and standards and believing people at a remote distance. And if you think of something of light touch regulation in the banks, if there isn't immediate oversight, if you're owning something on the other side of the world, you can't see what state it's in, really.
No. Yeah.
And you just have to trust what people are saying, whereas if you own the factory down the road, you can go down the road and look at the factory and go, what's going on here?
True. So I would say with carbon credit, they are heavily audited in the sense that you have someone who designs your project design document. That has to go to a separate validation body to say, if you do what you say you're going to do in this design document, then you'll get awarded so many credits over the project lifetime. The owner then has to go away and start the project. Then they have to produce a greenhouse gas report to say, my project has done this. That has to then go to a separate verification body who then verify what you've done over the first few years. It's only then can the credits be sold in the marketplace, and that verification should happen on a periodic basis. So there should be enough measures in place to say the action is happening.
But how would that be paid for then? Would people be, would that be like a ratings agency where you have to kind of pay them to get the rating? And
the project developer will have to pay the validation, the verification body, and to whichever sort of standard they want to set it on, whether they're going UN CDM, whether they're going BERA VCS or gold standard or one of the several others, they will have to pay for that sort of service. But credit ratings, that this is now a thing. We've got our friends at B0 Carbon. They're sort of becoming leaders in credit ratings, where they are doing essentially just another overview over everything that goes into it and a real deep dive into the projects to give that project a rating. You've got a fantastic sort of tech company called Silvera, who are using drones essentially to map forests. So when it comes to these forestry protection schemes and you're wondering what is happening out there, what is actually going out there, they're showing satellite imagery over what's happening. And you can clearly see areas that be deforested that shouldn't have been. And so this is all helping bring that transparency into the marketplace.
So why not? I mean, so I read a thing recently. It says that, so I don't know. It was a thing I saw online, so I didn't verify it. I didn't verify it at all, but it's something that's come to me. So Britain has something like only 13% tree cover, and it's one of the lowest tree cover in Europe. Why aren't we sort of reforesting here?
So we are. So there's loads of just tree planting schemes that are going on in the UK. Not many, not enough, but there are loads. I'm going to say loads. But in terms of carbon credits, what we do have is the UK's Woodland Carbon Code, whereby let's just establish there is a difference between tree planting and carbon credits from reforestation.
I mean, you want to keep trees rather than plant trees. It's the older ones that have more carbon and so on. Yeah.
But it's that audit process that comes with carbon credits that you calculate how much carbon is being sequestered from the trees. And as they grow, you measure them, you count them, and you can calculate how much carbon is being sequestered. Whereas when it's just tree planting, seed in the ground, see you later.
Yeah.
You have no idea what happens to that tree as it grows up. That's why tree planting is typically very, very cheap, and carbon credits much more expensive, especially the reforestation ones. But UK Woodland Carbon Code, and it's doing really, really well in the UK. But one of the issues with it is the fact that because it's quite a young scheme, everything is in the future.
Yeah.
So we're planting our trees, and there's all risks and yada, yada, yada to say that these are going to happen.
Yeah.
But they're all future based. And what they're called pending issuances. And what you receive is when you purchase a pending issuance is saying that, okay, at the year 2040, that's when that credit's going to mature. And that's when it becomes a verified issuance. And so the difficulty is that if you want to make claims against offsetting, so I've offset my 1,000 tons, you can't use a pending issuance to do that because the atmospheric outcome hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So everything that goes through the Woodland Carbon Code, it's not offsetting yet. It's getting that. It's trying that, it allows you to offset in the future.
Yeah.
And so if you want to, hit your net zero target by 2040, my advice is, well, go out and buy pending issuances that will verify in 2040 and beyond, so that you've got that secured now. And it's the case that the Woodland Carbon Code need more people to be doing that, so more trees can go in the ground and be protected and monitored and ensure that they do grow up.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I mean, I don't mean to seem kind of overly critical, and I don't think you're taking it that way anyway, but I'm on board and I'm fascinated by all of this. So so I'm just trying to think. So, I mean, we have kind of covered what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and then it got really complicated. I mean, this is part of the problem as well, isn't it? It's like, it's not easy. It affects everything, and it's everywhere, and everything has to change. But it doesn't mean that we have to live in caves, Yeah,
very true. Like it's easy in the sense that it's a 3-step process. It's calculate, reduce, offset. That's it. And then the reduction side, we always like to say there's a lot of other benefits to the company other than just what benefits the climate. You've got increased shareholder value, increased employee engagement, increased customer engagement because customers are crying out for it. And then there is high potential for financial return on your investment. Whatever, certainly our fees can quite easily be covered within a year, just based on reduction activities. But then if you are to take even sort of like bigger measures as part of this, there is still high chance for financial return, just because reduction, a lot of it is efficiency, and making efficiency savings will lead to financial savings, financial gain.
So, how do you calculate yourself?
Well,
do you do it on a regular basis? Is it like built into the company that, every 5 years we're going to review where we're at and what we should be doing? Or
so we will calculate on a corporate level, we'll calculate our own carbon footprint every year, and then we'll offset that. And it's that problem of when you are an SME, or a micro company, I don't know where, it's incredibly hard to do anything more or any less.
Yeah.
We're not flying around the world. We're not driving. Me and Michael, we both work remotely. Our employees are going to work remotely. fair enough. We've got to get them laptops and stuff.
Mm.
It's kind of part of it, but that's going to increase our own carbon footprint.
Yeah.
So it's at that smaller level, it is quite hard to implement those reduction activities. It's just, let's try and keep it as minimal as we can. Let's ensure that we do get the train when we see each other.
Yeah.
So Michael's based down in London.
Yeah.
So we don't have cars anyway, but it's that sort of process. It's okay. If we do have to go abroad, can we take a train? It's just try and lead by example.
Yeah. I mean, are you publishing the reports as well? I mean, is that part of the plan? Because I mean, you sound like you're genuinely trying to go from a transparent kind of open approach and, like you say, lead by example. So
so there's different things, right? So we've got, if you're just doing it, if we're just calculating carbon footprint, doing your reduction strategy and offsets, we heavily encourage that goes public because it needs to.
Yeah.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, I can't do what they do on their website. That's up to the client. I'm saying, look, if you're claiming carbon neutrality, this needs to go online. And even in our report, it says, where this report should be made viewable to the public. Because then we get onto certification standards. And in the UK, we've got BSI, British Standards Institute, and they've got PAS 2060, which is their certification on carbon neutrality. And they give you two options. One where you can self-declare, in which your greenhouse gas report must be made public. And that's the one we always encourage, because I say, look, if you get anyone to verify this, I guarantee you it's going to cost more than what it's going to cost us to do it in the first place. And ultimately, you've done great work here. There's nothing to hide. So make it public, show it off, show what best practices, because at the end of the day, we put our heart and soul into every report that we do to get that meaningful action. And if it's just someone looking online, not even for their sustainability, but having to come across their sustainability page, sees what they do and says, oh yeah, that's what we need to do. And hopefully that can generate further action.
Yeah. And also people just admitting where they're failing and you kind of cop to it, because it's like, well, okay, this is something that we want to try and address, or that we can't address at all. It's like, if you're making steel, you've got to burn things at high temperature.
It's true.
I'm wondering where to go next, because I think I can spend a lot of time on this, but I also want to go through the other questions. So I'll start with let's go back to COVID and the lockdown, and sort of where were you in your journey at that point?
Can we not?
Well, I mean, were you still studying? Had the business started at that point, or?
Yeah, so I was. So start of March, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2020 March.
Yeah, we had a bit of COVID. Then we went into proper lockdown about May time, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, they sort of had the initial first lockdown in March, and then it kind of opened again. But there were things that were locking down before. There was all sorts of people.
I was definitely doing my PhD at that point. It was, that was horrendous. That was absolutely horrendous. Finishing off my PhD during that point, and then so that was March. Was that 2020?
Yeah.
Time's
collapsed, hasn't it? It's just
really has. So that would have been like May 2020, and then September 2020, or in that sort of summer period when we did really get hit with the lockdown. My partner at the time, she got made redundant from her job. No furlough, which I always thought was a real suck for her. But we also kind of said together that we never wanted to remain in Leeds after my PhD. Like we always wanted to go off live abroad, see what's out there. So much opinion. I'm sorry. And so we decided that we wanted to move to Switzerland. So in September we moved to Switzerland and kind of had to deal with their restrictions. And they were, to me, it was funny, right? Because everyone went back into lockdown in the UK. Whereas Switzerland kind of had this really like tight measures, but not lockdown for so long. And then in November, I had to come back to the UK to finish off a little bit of lab work when the labs reopened. Did my 2 weeks quarantine in Birmingham with Michael. And well, Michael was out at work because he was working in aerospace. You know, he had to go into the factory. I was in quarantine with his poor girlfriend for 2 weeks. And then the last day of that quarantine, on the Monday, we went into national lockdown. That wasn't fun. But luckily, university labs stayed open. I don't know what that was about, but hey, so that was a month just over a month, might be, I can't remember, of just dark November days.
That was all. That was the first
to get it finished. And then some uncomfortable accommodation. That wasn't too fun. Then it was back in Switzerland, into the new year. And it was really like head down. This PhD gets done by end of March, because that's when my funding was running out. And more than not going to overrun. Pretty sure of that. And then it was, the start of MyCarbon, the sort of 1st of April. And that's when, we were still in this funny lockdown. In Switzerland, like real tight measures, and the rest of the UK was out and buzzing. And that was really tough, because all the Zoom calls with my friends, they stopped because they had bad things.
They could go outside.
They could go outside, like, oh. But then it was the first few months of MyCarbon. It was on my own. So and it's all remote.
Was that oh no, were you back in Leeds by then?
No, I was in Switzerland. It wasn't until August where I was like, I'm going to come back to the UK. Spent that summer working with Mike, because he'd gone full time. So that was our first time sitting down together and we stayed together for about 3 months, working side by side. And that was fantastic. We were machines. And it was always so much peer pressure of who's going to stop working first, which was great. And then we went up to COP, and then after COP, I came back to Leeds.
Would that always have been in your head to just do everything remotely, or?
It kind of was, but I think maybe it had the benefit of, especially on the client side, that made video calls so accepted. And this is how we do it. So that was fantastic. And it made going out to Switzerland that much easier. And that decision easier. Oh, it's remote. And no one wanted to see it. So you were fine. COVID did kill a couple projects for us that we were really excited to kick off. But unfortunately we couldn't. So that was a stumbling block at the start, but hey ho, we move on. But no, if anything, it just gave us the confidence that remote working is absolutely fine. We carry on. Maybe we'll have an office in the future, but we've got office space at the moment. We've got shared office spaces here in Leeds and in London. But
okay, well, I'll move straight on to Brexit. Keep all the fun questions together. So, I mean, again, it's going to be like probably just impossible for you to say, because you weren't up and running as a business really sort of going into it. You would have started after we'd Brexited.
It did make me move to Switzerland in a big hurry, because it was like that, and that was it. It was, let's go now, because if we go, we can't go next year, pretty much. And that, that's the only thing it really impacts me on, is a rash decision to move to Switzerland.
It's like, I want to see some of the world and kind of live somewhere else for a bit. And
and that was it. Other than that, I don't think Brexit really affected us at all. We still have internet, we still have European and further abroad clients.
Mm.
That hasn't really stopped us in any way, hasn't benefited us in any way, I don't think. But,
Yeah, I mean, because it would be really difficult to conceive of like, any kind of customs implications of just exchanging information or whatever.
no.
That's the thing. You can't stop at borders yet.
Yeah. And
By the way.
the only thing that might have affected, and I do not know enough about this, is that, the UK has put on some quite strict targets for companies,
Mm-hmm.
especially compared to European countries, about their financial report, about their sustainability reporting. Like TCFD reporting is now mandatory. So that's climate disclosure reporting.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to bid on a government contract worth 5 million or more, you need to have an emissions reduction strategy. So there are, things out there that the government has said, if you're a company of a certain size, you must be doing this. Whether that would have happened with or without Brexit, I don't know. But that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head.
It sounds like there's massive growth potential here, which means that, it won't be long before you'll have competitors nipping at your heels. So, I mean, will that be a good thing or a bad thing? Are you very much in a kind of, the more people that are doing it, the better, because that's what we want?
That's what I spent doing today. Actually, market research and competitor analysis. Fun day. You've got, there are some absolute giants out there who are crushing it and showing, how great they can do. You've got one of the biggest is a company called South Pole. They were founded in 2006 by a group of five entrepreneurs. A few weeks ago, they reached unicorn status. Yeah. They've got about 800 employees. Revenue last year was almost 250 million.
Yeah.
They're doing well, and they're doing what we do, but on a much, much greater scale.
Yeah.
They're one of the largest carbon credit project developers in the world. So they create their own projects. And again, that's an ambition of ours, but that's future. The industry's growing at 11%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Chinese growth levels.
Yeah. So, there's big growth here.
Yeah.
There's going to be competitors, but there's such huge demand for it at the moment. At the moment, we talk with a lot of other small companies who do work very similar to what we do. Now, fair enough, we've got our own secret sauce, but at the end of the day, let's help each other. Let's help each other grow. Let's grow together. Let's build it so that we're all doing excellent work.
Yeah.
That all benefits the climate.
Yeah. There's
no point trying to push each other down when we're only, five people big. Like, you're not going to grow doing that. You're better off all coming up together.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of why when I think on it, like, there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Okay, I'll do the change question first because I think this might be quite interesting. So basically, if there were any three things that you could change about your work today, what would you change? So you've got sort of carte blanche here. So
any three things I could change about my work?
About your work, yes. So, I mean, that could be more employees, more money, less hours, able to have greater reach, whatever.
I think a lot of this is a marketing problem, right? You got to make sustainability sexy. You got to make people really want it. So I'd have an expert marketing team, because what I really want is impact in the world. And if all I'm doing is taking people who have a business, who want to be sustainable, and I give them that, then that's great, but they ultimately would have gone somewhere else and done the same thing. Whereas if I can reach people who didn't want to do this and change their opinion and then get them to do it, that I think is real impact. So somehow reaching those,
Mm.
I don't know how to do
Mm.
because I'm an engineer.
Mm.
I think that would be fantastic. I'd definitely be working on carbon removals because we've got too much carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in our atmosphere.
Mm.
So, like the company based out in Switzerland is called Climeworks. Absolutely. Everyone who listens to this, please look into them.
Mhm.
Because it's a company that's genuinely saving the world, and they work on direct air carbon capture and storage, in which they suck air out in the atmosphere with some big old fans,
Mm.
do some cool chemistry with it, and then pump it into rocks underground where it becomes mineralized, and it's stored there for a sort of like a geological time scale,
Mm.
right? And if we had loads of these, like it really got, could pump financing to scale these operations up, as well as scale out nature-based solutions.
Mm.
That would be fantastic. And then again, like investing in renewables,
Mm.
get the grid green, etc.
Mm.
I think that'll be some big ideas. But in terms of time back, yes, that would also be lovely. Just enough that I can go to the gym for a couple hours a day, have time that you can have this, the free headspace right now. There's so many things spinning in my head, and it makes making decisions and doing the little tasks really difficult.
Yeah, and you can't leave it at the office because it's you.
Exactly.
You're the office.
And like I run, so I get, it sounds silly, but if I did 6 hours of work a day
Mm.
and gave my absolute best to those, 3 2-hour blocks,
Mm.
that's ultimately how I work best.
Mm.
And, if I had a nice routine where you could do, your morning routine, a bit of training,
Mm.
come back, 2 hours of work, have a lunch break, maybe do some life admin,
Mm.
bit more work, go back to the gym, finish that, then finish up your work for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then have like that to me is ultimate life balance.
Yeah.
And that would be that would be absolutely fantastic. How I get there, I'm figuring that one out.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing to figure out when you start working for yourself. It's like, how do I like to work? When do I like to work? What?
Well, and that is it. Like it's the thought of, I absolutely love what I do.
Mm.
I get to wake up every morning and speak to my best friend,
Mm.
which I think is fantastic.
Mm.
And it's such a great thing to be able to have. And I know that the work that I do is having a positive impact in the world. So
Mm.
when it is late and you are cracking out another carbon footprint report and you really don't want to write it,
Mm.
there's this underlying motivation within you to get it done.
Mm.
But ultimately, yeah, well, you are your own boss. If I don't want to take a project, I don't have to. I can limit my workload, but I do want to create and build. And so you got to put that time in and that work in.
You've got to create like a mental matrix of sort of like, there's a reason to do this. It's like, who cares about this? I'm the boss. Yeah, I care because I care. And these are the reasons that I'm giving myself to care. How much does social media play into your work? How much has that got you work? How much does that, like, how much of your day do you have to spend doing it on? Like, how much does it affect work for you now?
LinkedIn is the best tool
Mm-hmm.
out there. And I say this for any professional.
Mm.
Grow a following. Because whether or not you're looking for a job now or you want something in the future, if you've got a following and they're following you because you're showing, giving them some value every single day, that is absolutely huge. And it would do wonders for your career. It was quite early on where we were posting on LinkedIn like a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But we realized after our first 12 weeks, we did sort of a bit of analysis, where did our first few clients come from? Because we were cold calling, we were cold emailing, we were doing it all. LinkedIn, that seemed to be doing a bit better than average. Okay, let's spend a little bit more time here while still doing the rest. And then putting that little bit of more time in there really then took off. And it was, just for instance, I realized that if I commented on posts by like big names,
Mm.
then I was getting seen more.
Mm.
And it was, poor diplomatic. It was James Watts, from Brewdog, and he was posting about sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what goes on inside Brewdog. I've had a great working relationship with them. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
But it was this post on sustainability, and I was, I was a mega fan of their mega reports. When they came out, I thought they were absolutely fantastic.
Mm.
I thought they were a great job, and they were written with Professor Mike Berners-Lee, who's like an OG carbon footprinter. He's literally written a book on it, How Bad Are Bananas?
Yeah.
Right, it's the carbon footprint of everything. Fantastic. And I used to, when I was doing cold emails, our target audience for that sort of little stint was breweries and distilleries.
Yeah.
Because Brewdog had brought out Mega 2.0, and I was like, here's what Brewdog have done.
Mm.
You can do exactly the same. And it was like sort of that sort of opening line. And, James put a post on it, and people would just slate it, absolutely slate it. And they hadn't even read it, because if they'd read it, they'd know what they were saying was utter horseshit.
Yeah.
And so it was just going through the comments and just correcting them. And that's all it was. I wasn't trying to get anyone's attention.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to shout about anything. I wasn't trying to sell myself. I was just giving a little bit of value and correcting where they've been mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately that got picked up by James, who got his marketing director to get in touch with me. And then we did a project for Brewdog, and then that went well. And then I ended up writing Mega 3.0.
Mm.
And this was at COP26. I had a day where Mike was driving us up. I was on the phone to Martin Dickey in the car driving up to COP26, which was freaking mad to think that this was happening only a few months after going full time. And then got to a point where I was sat in a Brewdog in Glasgow, laptop open. I was on a call with Mike Berners-Lee about the Brewdog. And I was just, how is this happening? It's like being sat in Harry Potter world. It's like being sat in Harry Potter world talking to J.K. Rowling about how I should write the next Harry Potter book. That's genuinely what it felt like. It was incredible. And LinkedIn has just brought so many opportunities to us. Like, we don't do any outbound marketing. Like, absolutely no need for it. Because LinkedIn has got us connected now to so many people, so many partners.
Well, that's it. And you've got good names there. So like, you've already got that client list of like, oh, they're working for this company. All right. Well, they must be legit,
Yeah. Like, I was asked to go into the hub group for Earth Day, FTSE 100 company, and to speak to 15,000 employees on the climate crisis. That wouldn't have happened without LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's just things like that. And I think it is so valuable, so important, whether you're at early stage in your career or maybe later on, but just start growing, just start posting about what you're doing, what you're interested in, share a news article and give your opinion on it. That's all it is. And you will see the rewards from it, like no doubt.
Cool. I mean, from a carbon cost perspective though, is it the cost benefit analysis of it? Is it good to have all that content? I mean, sort of posting every day and you're putting stuff out and like you say, you're trying to create value, but are you always creating value? Like, is it worthwhile to just be posting, or should the content be sort of, more prestige because you are putting it online? Like, what's your...
The carbon footprint of a LinkedIn post is so minuscule. Don't worry about it. Honestly, the way the world is in at the moment, there are so many bigger things to tackle than worrying about if you're putting a post up or not. It's like saying, like you can save your carbon footprint by not sending that email. Don't send the thank you email. You're going to send the thank you email. It's just, it's things like that. If I post every day and don't go on holiday to New York, well, there we go, done. Or, that's 1 ton compared to grams.
Yeah.
that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
It's really, really minuscule. We do have some information on it. I can't remember at the top of my head how sort of big it is, but it will get weight. And who owns LinkedIn?
Microsoft.
And well, there we go. They've got a fantastic sustainability sort of plan. They've got loads of green servers, right? They're carbon neutral.
Mm.
So yeah, solved. They're already pretty green.
So, are you taking any kind of, I mean, obviously you're then reliant after you've done the service of people reporting back of how much carbon they've saved. But I suppose in that initial instance, you've got that estimate of like, this is how much you're going to save. Like, are you taking a collective total just for your own interest of like, oh, I've already saved this much?
Right. Okay. Yeah, we were supposed to, but when it got into the task of things to do every week.
Yeah, that's a lot of work for not necessarily.
Yeah, it was just one of those extra little things on the dashboard. We were like, no. Friday afternoon, no.
Maybe a special piece of work for one person after, you've been around for 5-10 years or whatever, of like someone would go out and look at how much.
Yeah, there's an employee out there who's going to do that.
I think we've pretty much gone through most of my questions there, and we've talked quite comprehensively about most stuff. Is there anything that we've not covered that you want to cover? Anything that you kind of think of?
I can only just say, like, maybe on a personal level, like what I think you can do for the climate crisis.
Yeah.
And honestly, as much as people talk about action and stop talking and have action, I think one of the best things we can do is talk about it. Right? Talk about it with your friends, at the pub, have it on your mind so that when it does come to making decisions, it's there and it's in part of this thought process that you're having every day. It's read up on the climate crisis, learn about it, talk about it, help educate your peers and your family, start challenging your favorite brands that don't have sustainability at the front of their business, and the brands that are sort of promoting sustainable items, products, services, and make sure they are actually sustainable. I think it's just talking about it, getting onto your minds, and then that will have the influence of getting a business to change what they're doing. Change the way we vote. So we are picking the leaders with green policies. I think, if everyone is just talking about it more and more and more, it's on our minds more and more and more.
Yeah.
That's got to lead to the actions.
Yeah. And I would say within, like, do it within your workplace as well. Like, ask about what we're doing, what are we doing and what can I do and what are we going to do? And ask at job interviews as well. Like, what's your policy? What's going on? Was there anything else? Oh yeah. So we'll do the socials if you want to give us, so obviously you're on LinkedIn.
Yeah. LinkedIn, Toby Green. And then we've got our MyCarbon page as well. I think that's the easiest one to do.
It's just mycarbon.com.
The website is mycarbon.co.uk. Don't go to mycarbon.com.
I'll probably think of a ton of other questions as soon as we stop. But I think I've covered most things that I need to cover there.
Wonderful.
I mean, obviously you're very busy, but are you open for sort of anyone getting in touch? Is it,
of course.
And sort of price wise, is it, do you need to be at a certain level of turnover or any?
And also we help businesses from one employee all the way up to multinationals, right? If you're a startup, we recognize how hard it is to be a startup. So we do try and work with them in cheaper rates, or if there's something else that we can do. But typically if you're just an office-based business, a carbon footprint report might start at £800. If you're a manufacturer with a single manufacturing site, and it's more like £1,600, but it really depends on your business and your activities and how we price that. But we try and our competitors will charge 3-4 times as much as that. And that's because they can, they've got the big names to go for it. But at the same time, I want to facilitate climate action. I don't want money to be stopping that.
Yeah.
So if price is ever an issue, people can always say.
Thank you again to Toby for being my guest. Thanks again to all my guests, and thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. And of course, most of all, thanks to you, my dear listener. Come back next week to hear me speak to a mermaid. How will they cope with all the new swimming spaces that are created by climate change? So we have some great climate projects in Leeds, don't we? Climate Action Plan, Sail, Quantum Source, and now MyCarbon. And I don't think this scratches the surface of all the regenerative work going on in the city or the attempts to build resilience. I don't know about you, but I don't know if I would have known about any of these organizations if I wasn't doing working hours. Maybe I would. I'd hope so. Maybe I'd know the names of some of these things. Maybe I'd give them a follow or a like on something. Maybe. But it's really great to hear them talk, hear what they get passionate about in their work. Better than reading copy, isn't it? I don't know what is going on with this show anymore. I have lost control of it. It's too expensive to run. It's too time consuming. It's emotionally exhausting, and none of it needs to happen. Well, no, this discussion needs to happen. Maybe not like this, but we do need to have more discussion about work and how we look at our social issues with our work in mind. And we need to hear more of that conversation from the people doing the thing. And we need to hear more from the people who live directly around us as well. Look at how much knowledge and expertise is in this city at just 30 odd episodes. And I haven't even scratched the surface of it. Just think what 1,000 of these episodes would be like. All those different voices and professions and opinions, all that knowledge and experience from people that you know, or your mate knows, or your mate's mate knows, or being able to listen to someone that you will know or will work with, or that you'd love to know or love to work with. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm doing something different to every other political, business, lifestyle, documentary podcast that's out there. I'm focusing on one city as my subject and on one subject with a set goal. I'm using the city that I know best, a city I was raised in, one that I left and I returned to. I'm looking at my city in a way that complements my experience of working in the private sector, the voluntary sector, and the public sector, of minuting board meeting notes and meeting VIPs, and of mopping floors and filing paper, and of everything else in between. I know what work is, but I can't answer for myself what work is for me, other than it is not good for me, but it's marginally better than the alternative. Life in the 2020s, eh? There's no escape. Okay, that's me. Cheers, ears. Take care out there and be kind to each other, Leeds. If you're listening to this, I assume you have some connection to Leeds, like living here or being from here. If you're such a person in Leeds or from Leeds and you haven't done your recording for working hours yet, then don't wait. Email me now, right now. Quick, get a pen. workinghoursPod@western-studios.com. If you fancy being my guest, put guest in the subject line of your email and add a short bio in the message. Stick in some suggestions of your availability and I'll send you a release form and a Zoom invite. If you'd like to be on working hours, I will need a 2-hour window for us to record in. I can record in your work time or during your downtime. I have been recording interviews for working hours for over a year on Zoom, but I can also record offline. You can appear on working hours anonymously, or you can promote yourself and or your company or brand. Cleaner or owner, what is your experience? How do you feel about work? What do you like and not like? What do you do, Leeds? Be a part of local history, have your voice heard, share your wisdom, give us the inside skinny. This is your show, Leeds, and it's all about what you make of yourself. Do you know what you're doing? If you do, then come and tell me all about it. Come on working hours, even if you don't know what you're doing. I certainly don't. Email me right now. Quick, get a pen. workinghoursPod@western-studios.com. If you're allowed to do that, that is. If you're not allowed to do that, then tell me why. If you and your business aren't ashamed of what you do, then let's hear all about it. What good are you doing the rest of us? Are you socially useful? Am I? Is this? Send your feedback, questions, comments, and queries right now to workinghoursPod@western-studios.com. What is happening, Leeds? Find out by following this show on Twitter at Working Hours 3 and on Instagram at Working Hours Pod Leeds to find out when new episodes are going to be released, or just use the hashtag Working Hours Pod Leeds on either of those sites to find me. I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds. I'm also on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/IN/Simon-Treen. Treen is TREEN. Or you can go to my company page, which is linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. If you want to make a podcast in Leeds, whether it's for a cause, a publicity campaign, a product promotion, or your own passion project, then get in touch with me, Western Studios, for support, advice, and guidance on anything podcasts. At Western Studios, you work with a real life lawyer who is actually in Leeds, who you can actually work with on making podcast content. So don't wade through articles and videos and podcasts about how to make podcasts. Just get on with it. Western Studios can make your podcast with you or even for you. Western Studios can take on your podcast's boring, time-consuming, and painful admin, recording, editing, transcription, whatever. Tell me about it. I feel your pain. For a charge, I'll share it. Writers, what are you doing with your lives? Hopefully you're writing. Well, I know there are listeners out there who want to hear great original writing performed as audio content and made in Leeds. How do I know this? Because I'm one of them. Help me make Muck for Brass, a series of short stories, poems, performers, whatever, all published as podcast content. Is your work arty, salacious, pulpy, strange? Good. I want to make it a podcast. I get practice making the show, and you get a finished, performed, and published version of your writing. It's also, I want to do it on a pay-as-you-feel sort of deal. Businesses, campaigns, brands got an inkling that you'd like a podcast but don't know where to start. Hit me up at makemypodcast at western-studios.com and we'll start making your podcast straight away. The first hour of arranged consultation and pre-production time is free. So what do you have to lose? And what are you waiting for? Save yourself the hassle and the headache and make your podcast with a Leeds-based, in real life podcast producer. That's me, Western Studios Leeds. Once again, please let Working Hours get big and strong by joining its Patreon. Support Working Hours by becoming a champion on Patreon for £1 a month. You can inspire me and motivate me with a membership and maybe one day even be helping to cover all my costs. You can chat to me there and see me do a monthly live stream where, again, you can chat to me all about the show and, God, do I need to find someone to actively share this project with? Go to patreon.com/workinghoursepod right now and sign up, please. And or go to Ko-fi, that's ko-fi.com/working hours and join me there for £1 a month and get access to the Working Hours Discord and chat to me there. I will be putting up additional material on Ko-fi once there are any members there. Please remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe to this show. Every little bit helps. Tell your gran, tell your housekeeper, tell your gardener, tell your parole officer, tell your boss, tell Leeds. And I'll see thee next time, our kid. Working Hours is presented, edited, and recorded by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org.